Good morning and welcome to Two Ways the Morning Meeting. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Halperin. Sean, Dan, and I take you through the day's events. If you're here on the Two Way platform, you want to get in the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're watching on YouTube or X, I got a little secret for you. You can get here on the platform, sign up for my Substack or the Two Way newsletter at twoway.tv. That's twoway.tv, and you can be notified of the secret special instructions required to be part of the conversation in a live and interactive manner. However you choose to participate, as always, peace, love, and understanding, and the presumption of grace to all. And we start this morning with a new feature that I'm very excited about. It's called, yeah, Dan, what is it?
Mark, before you go,
Yeah.
Jake Sherman is reporting
Yeah.
that Speaker Johnson has told the conference he will not bring up Lindsey Graham's budget resolution passed by the Senate. So take that middle finger to start your Tuesday, Lindsey.
Okay, well, that's good.
I don't know that that's news. I mean, I don't think that was ever going to happen. He wasn't going to bring up the budget resolution from the Senate.
That's what we call news in the world of Jake Sherman and apparently Dan Turrentine. All right, we'll get to some of that in a moment. But first, we're going to play our new game. What are they leading with? We're going to take a look. Sean and Dan are not peeking. They're going to tell us what they think the cable news networks are leading with here at 9 Eastern time, and we'll see if they're right. Sean, go ahead. MSNBC, what are they leading with?
Why Donald Trump's horrible and how the courts are going to strip him of all his power and he'll go to jail and be impeached.
Okay, so Trump in the courts. CNN.
Why MSNBC is right that Trump will be taken down in the courts.
So they're both leading with the courts. And Fox News.
Pete Hegseth's new style is a welcome addition at the Pentagon.
Okay. Dan, MSNBC.
Constitutional crisis.
CNN.
Reconciliation.
No.
Republicans are, yep.
Okay, and Fox News.
Doge, baby, Doge.
All right, let's put it up. Let's see if they got it.
Ownership of Gaza. One person killed, several injured in an airport collision, all caught on video.
Best workers.
Well, it's the top of the hour. I'm not really sure.
Hold on. Let them get into their first thing.
The lawsuit was brought on by unions representing federal workers.
So that's whose audio are we listening to there?
Authority to make
Fox,
such an offer.
Doge.
The government
So
argues
Fox
it has
leads
the right
with
to manage its workforce. So
well,
far,
Fox is leading with the courts.
65,000 federal workers have taken the deal.
Yeah, but it's Doge.
I would give Dan that one.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. CNN is.
You can lose a case like that. We're talking about.
What is CNN? Switch to MSNBC audio, please.
Making government better. You can appeal those decisions.
All right. So you guys both got that one, and switch to CNN.
Senate speaking yesterday on camera talking about.
And one that President Trump has now threatened, suggesting he would withhold.
Dan nails it. Dan, 3 for 3.
Jordan
Sean, 2 for 3. Congratulations. Thank you for playing.
Why didn't we even talk about C-SPAN?
Paul, tell Dan what he's won.
That's Pedro.
All right.
A new Twitter profile.
New Twitter profile. Congratulations, Dan. And he goes on to our champions round to be played in Birmingham, Alabama. You can take the quad down. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Let's run through the day. President Trump in the White House today. He greets the Jordanian king and the crown prince of Jordan, both at 11:30 a.m. Anybody remember a bilat that involved father and son? I don't remember this ever happening.
MBS and the dad.
At the White House or in Saudi?
Definitely in Saudi. I think at one point they came together. I can't recall entirely.
I don't I think that did happen maybe, but I don't remember it being announced this way, like a father-son bilat. I think the father was announced and the son just came along like, take your son to work day. Anyway, he greets him at 11:30, bilat at 11:35, 12:05 participates in the bilat over lunch, and then 1:05 they say goodbye. There's no press conference scheduled, but watch this space. I think one could be added. Stand by for that. 3 o'clock, the president's.
You want to put money on that one?
No, I never bet on things I cover, but I was told to be prepared that they might have something to say.
Yeah, well, it'll be because that's all about whether or not you can move people to Jordan and Egypt from Gaza. So that's going to be.
They might have,
but he does have executive order time at 3, which is now the new word for.
Yeah. Now, that's in theory closed press. Yesterday, it sort of was open press, and it happened later than announced. So we'll be watching that. The vice president is in France, where What's the time difference? Is it lunchtime in France? Yes,
6
it is.
hours. Yep.
Yeah, so it's already past
In the
lunchtime.
afternoon.
Anyway, he gave a speech, which we'll look at in a moment, lunch with Macron. Lots happening on Capitol Hill. And as Dan's breaking news from Jake Sherman suggested, lots of conversation about what they're going to do about the budget and reconciliation, tied up inextricably with debt ceiling, et cetera. We'll talk about that too. House and Senate both in session. 9 o'clock at this hour, they're having their separate weekly meetings in private. Then at 10, the Speaker and his leadership aides hold a press conference. Also at 10, Homeland Security is holding a hearing on Chinese investment in Western Hemisphere ports. I include that because there's no bigger issue facing America than the fact that we let China just completely spy on our ports and control them in the case of World War III. And then at 11, the House Democratic leadership holds their press conference. On the Senate side, 10 a.m., Chairman Powell, first time in the Trump 2.0, testifies before Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Will be interesting to see what he gets asked regarding all sorts of things related to Donald Trump. 11:30, the Senate Finance Committee votes on the nomination of Jamieson Greer to be the head of USTR. 12:30, those weekly Senate lunches take place, and at some point today, Tulsi Gabbard is going to be confirmed, and that's a pretty big story. All right. As we saw when we dipped in on the coverage, the left is consumed with the question of whether the Trump administration is going to defy judicial rulings. So far, they're denouncing judicial rulings, but not defying them. But there seems to be a certainty. The New York Times has gotten exclusive interviews with many law school deans. And Sean, law school deans often have the last word in American polity. 100%. So in all seriousness, Sean, the left is worried that there'll be a judicial order and President Trump will simply say no. And as they discussed on MSNBC this morning, get ready to roll tape, there's really no great alternative. If the executive branch defies the judicial branch, it's not really clear what recourse the judiciary has in a case where you cannot jail the president, and fining the federal government is not really worth much. Roll tape, please.
How does a judge hold an administration in criminal contempt? I mean, who do you can't jail the president, obviously. In fact, if we remember, Donald Trump was held in criminal contempt by the New York judge in his criminal case, but that judge was very reluctant to mete out that ultimate sanction of jail time. It didn't happen when he was the ex-president. It's not going to happen when he's the president. So what are the remedies? I mean, we were gaming this out yesterday. Are they going to throw some hapless Justice Department lawyer who happens to be in the courtroom, throw that person in jail? Do they levy fines? What would be the point of fining the federal government, which has unlimited resources? So we're really at that point where it's starting to become a practical question, not just a theoretical question. And the other issue is it's really difficult for the judge to get the facts when you have a government agency and the plaintiffs aren't allowed inside, and you have Elon Musk and his people and they're saying, well, we are spending the money, and folks are saying, well, we're not getting the money. So it's a really difficult situation, guys.
So, Sean, should the left be concerned, or no, I don't like to ask yes/no questions. How concerned should the left be that Donald Trump will defy a judicial ruling?
So let me just get up on my soapbox for a sec. First of all, the left loves to use the phrase without evidence. There's no evidence that that's going to happen. And yet everyone from the New York Times to MSNBC has created this faux notion of a constitutional crisis. Let's see what happens. There's no evidence that they will defy a court order. In fact, so far, there's been, 5 stays? He had multiple stays during his first term on various things, and nothing happened that was out of the ordinary. So let's pump the brakes, take a breath, take a beat, and see what happens. Secondly, let's find out. I mean, my understanding from some of the dialogue is that there are some potential alternatives that don't involve jailing the president of the United States. But the court does have some additional remedies. Let's see what happens. Let it play out. But this panic that MSNBC, NBC, the New York Times, Politico, everybody else has gotten on board with. Joe Biden defied the Supreme Court when it came to student loans. He defied the Supreme Court on multiple other issues. He flouted the ability he didn't have to, abide by certain rulings when it came to immigration and other things. So this notion that somehow we're at this brink of a constitutional crisis is a little overblown.
Sean, let me just press you on the point that they raise and that Ken Delaney and MSNBC, NBC talked about. If they do decide to not comply with the judicial order, what do you think the judiciary can and would do?
I don't know, but I feel like you know, a moment ago when you were asked, you said I don't want to bet or engage. Like let's. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Well, let's let the lawyers figure it out what the options are. There's a lot of judges that have a lot of things, but to insinuate something that has not been, the Trump administration has not signaled they intend to defy them. So let's.
Well, JD Vance.
Yeah, I was gonna say Elon Musk has.
They've signaled.
No.
That they might have a different kind.
The court.
No,
they criticized the court.
They said they're not. They basically said they're not bound by it. But I agree with you. I try to follow your lead and not be upset by the consensus view of law school deans contacted by the New York Times. Dan, is this a real issue or not?
I don't think it's a real issue yet. I mean, I agree with Sean. I think part of the party's problem is we kind of go to 11 on every single thing. I mean, it was Hitler. Now it's like it's a constitutional crisis. I think rather than a lot of this, if you watch MSNBC and you listen to the left, it still always goes back to Trump. And I think for Trump, I actually think, or for the Republican, party, he probably would almost prefer the court stop him, because then he has a boogeyman, right? If he's not able to get stuff done, he can point and say, the courts are stopping us. I would have gotten A, B, C, and D done, but those SOBs stopped me. So I actually think he wouldn't mind some obstruction being put in his way to keep the base fired up. The second thing for Democrats that I would say is, I would just stick to, we are a nation of rule of law and order. Don't make it about an individual, about Musk, about Trump. Just, we are a nation of rules. They apply to everyone. And if the new precedent is that one can just blow off what the court says, then we are going to start becoming a very different country. I would just stick to that high level principle and that value, because if you look at historically, when Democrats talked about expanding the Supreme Court and things of that nature, the public recoils and says, no, we don't like this. I know the bases will get kind of worked up, but that middle 10 or 20% does not like it when you ignore the courts. They don't like it when people start steamrolling and disobeying law and order. So I would try to own that and paint the Republicans as extreme.
I think, by the way, the one thing that Trump's got going with him for him is so much of this stuff is common sense. We're exposing some of the most unbelievable waste and fraud in this government. And the idea that if Trump wants to go, to Dan's point, I think the smart play on any of this would say, I'm literally going after waste, fraud, and abuse, exposing the most extreme disrespect of your tax dollars that you work hard for to send to Washington. And this is what the left is willing to fight me on. This is what they want to continue. They want to cover up DEI carnivals in Ireland and Colombia and trans festivals. And, if that's what you guys, if the left wants to go all in on that, I think that Trump would be smart to say, you know what, guys, I'm fighting for you. Elon's sleeping on a mattress in a federal building, and this is what the left wants to stand up for. You got a choice. I'll go fight it out in court for you, but this is what's going on.
Yeah, it's the status quo versus change. I mean, and Democrats have gotten into this trap where all we do every day is bang the drum. It's like Animal House. All is well, remain calm, as you're getting stampeded by the general population that is cheering on the reform and the change. Not all of it, but the party has got to stop saying status quo. It's good. Everything is fine. You can't touch anything. It's just not where the country is.
Leaving aside what this document they produced to say stop prosecuting Eric Adams, which is unlike any document I have ever seen from the Justice Department. Leaving that exception aside, my perception is that the lawyers who are doing all this litigating for the administration are right out there on the edge. They're pressing the Trump position hard, the administration position hard, but they're not filing crazy things. They're not asserting new powers in some revolutionary way. It's right on the edge, but it's not even at the point of novel. Do you guys agree with that, or do you have a different point of view?
Well, I mean, I think And this is the problem when you're hysterical about every single thing. It's hard to kind of then start differentiating like where you should really focus your energy in terms of things that are getting close to the edge, just getting rid of the Foreign Bribery Act.
Well, let me be clear. The policies are over the edge. The policies are brand new and revolutionary. What I'm saying is the legal arguments being made by the Justice Department lawyers are not particularly novel. Sean.
But that's the challenge, right?
Yes, that is the challenge.
No. But I mean, it's kind of like every single time something happens, the party just starts screaming hair on fire. And so when you have real cases of you're kind of getting near the legal line, if not going over it, I think it's just getting lost in the noise because every issue is an outrage.
Yeah. So a couple of things on this. One, I think Trump has always, I think, identified with people who have felt aggrieved. So you think about the Rod Blagojevich pardon yesterday, the Eric Adams thing, that he shares the feeling that like, yep, they went after me. I see why they went after you. There's a sense of shared sense of a attack that he identifies with. And so that's always part of his DNA and his thinking. I just as a side note, I thought that yesterday, one of the things that's really kind of fun about these executive order sessions is that not only is it a Q&A with the press, which is, I think, what a lot of people focus on, but when you see that stack of 10, it's like a deck of cards. I mean, it's like, we're going to declare 25% tariffs on Canada and aluminum. Then I'm getting rid of this agency. Then I'm signing these people's appointments for sub-cabinet agencies. Then I'm, going against paper straws. It was like, you just don't know which one's next. And it's just always something. And I think that's what is so different. And it keeps Dan's made this point before, but it's like, pew, pew, pew. Which do you want to shoot at? Because the paper straw thing yesterday went completely viral. And it's almost like you forgot that there was something over here that you probably would have shot at earlier.
Right. Just quickly on Adams. Do either of you have any idea? There's a speculation that Adams has something to give to the president in return for this extraordinary act of kindness. Do either of you have any knowledge or speculation about what Trump gets out of it? Or is it just, as you said, Sean, he likes to acknowledge when people are in his view, unfairly prosecuted?
I would just say that if you think about the interest that he has in New York City, some property, some business licenses, I don't know that they're, I'm just saying that it makes sense to have a friend.
Sure, but I'm not sure how much longer he'll be mayor, particularly if he accepts.
Well, I mean, I'll say what Sean didn't want to say. Trump's the most transactional person there. He's not just sympathetic.
Right. So what's he getting? So what's he getting out of it?
He's going to get an immigration warrior. He's going to get someone who is going to lean in completely, who's going to publicly praise the president for his help. With ICE, with cleaning up the city. And I would not be surprised, even if Adams loses, he still champions, and if not, is employed by Trump, because he will say, I lost a Democratic primary because I did the right thing supporting Donald Trump in a blue city. And I think he gets a blue city warrior now.
All right. So if you listen to Democrats now, there's a different all over the map positions on what to do about a shutdown and about the debt ceiling. It's almost certain that Democratic votes are going to be required there. We mentioned earlier the Republican on Republican conflict, House and Senate, although it's not just broken down by House and Senate, over what to do about reconciliation, 1 versus 2, big, beautiful bills. Historically, Democrats have not wanted to do anything but paint the Republican Party as the party of shutdown, the party of irresponsibility on the debt ceiling. And yet now some Democrats are saying, maybe this is our opportunity. Maybe it is the need that Republicans have for our votes on debt ceiling and a continuing resolution or a budget that gives Democrats a chance to get back in the game. So Dan, if you were sitting in those strategy meetings, do you see opportunity there, or is that a mirage?
So I see opportunity, but not for the reason that some are championing this shutdown. To me, it rings of like Ted Cruz saying, shut it down over ACA. This is our chance to gut it, when you had no chance to gut it, right? It just fired up the base. And so saying we're going to shut the government down to reinstitute all this spending, rehire all these employees is just crazy. It's not going to happen. Trump is not going to sign a bill like that. The Senate is not going to pass, or the House, a bill like that. To me, where there are opportunities are two things. One is substance. Two, and this is big for the party, our values. What are we for? Why are we for it? And who does it benefit? We have to stop fighting, as we just talked about, every issue as a 5-alarm fire, the status quo. Like, this is a chance to kind of move forward because they will need our votes. I think the second part of it is there is a lot of grumbling in Washington about both Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Hakeem, that he's kind of too nice. He's not really strong enough. Some, sympathy that it's a more unruly place because it's the House. Schumer, that he's too old, that he just kind of, his tactics and strategies were great, 15 years ago, but he doesn't get the modern game. He doesn't really understand how to confront Trump. So both for those two, but also for anyone who's thinking of going for the king one day, this is your chance to step forward and try to lead the party where they might be a little more hesitant. And, I think there are some logical places for the party to start saying, we are on your side, right? Egg prices are, I just read today, they're the highest they've ever been. That does not seem to be coming down. What are things that we could fight for during these shutdown and debt ceiling for the economy to benefit you? When he blows out or overrules the Foreign Corruption Act, is that a value? Like, make Republicans defend some of this crazy. Try to get riders in this stuff that would say, no, the Foreign Bribery Act, we're overruling the executive order, and make them say, no, we're good with bribery. Or the ethics departments are all being removed and people fired. So both values and substance, that we are for you, why we're for this.
Sean.
So I agree with Dan to some extent, that I would say find your policy issue that affects people on a real level. To be honest with you, the foreign service, if you're explaining, you have to explain what it is, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So don't pick something that is sort of just very, that no one has ever heard of before. If you can pick a program and say, these education programs are under assault, thousands of kids get free lunches and that's a simple sell. Yeah. So I think that if I were them, I would pick my fight on some kind of budget issue. Conversely, if I was Trump and Johnson, I said this before, pick off your 5, 6, 7 Democrats, and you might only get 2, but who cares? But pick them off and say, what is it that we could do in a bill, in a reconciliation bill, in a debt ceiling bill that would be important to you? And 1 or 2 people are always easy to there's something that somebody really wants, or a compromise that they can make, or they work in a district, they have a district that will benefit them for. So my thing to the Trump folks is go through those districts that are +1, +2, and find 1 or 2 people that will play ball with you. Get them into the fold now, quote, make it bipartisan, which is a much better sell by picking off 1s or 2s. But they the debt ceiling vote and these 2 other things are going to be, this is that Rubik's Cube. How do you figure out, move one color without screwing the other one over? That you've got Jody Arrington, the chair of the budget committee, Chip Roy, who want a higher debt number, a spending reduction number to get the debt down. And a lot of these other guys that want spending, or you heard Mike Lawler on the program the other day that really needs those adjustments in the state and local tax, what they call SALT. So I think that they've got to figure out some way to get what they don't need 10, they need 3, maybe 2 Democrats on board, and they can easily be, you find 1 or 2 issues that they really care about and get them on board sooner rather than later.
One other thing I would just add, if I were the Democratic Party, and I've said this a couple of times recently, I would enter this fight proposing some cuts that go at Republicans to their priorities, to their, pork, whether it's in the DOD, the Agriculture Department. There's enough staffers that run around Capitol Hill who wrote these bills. They know Republican pain points. I would proactively shove it to the table, put it to Elon, because you can't just be all for the spending. You're gonna have to try to make Republicans squirm and say, oh, no, that pork, that, DOD program that's like the party in Honolulu that cost $1 million with all the alcohol, like, we need to cut it.
All right, one more topic, and then we're going to get to your questions. Again, if you want in on the conversation, please raise your hand. J.D. Vance has got, I think, the most high-profile 3-week run of a new vice president in at least my career. And today he's in France, as we said, on his first foreign trip. He spoke earlier today at this big international AI conference. Let's, as they say in the business, take a listen.
The Trump administration will ensure that AI systems developed in America are free from ideological bias and never restrict our citizens' right to free speech. We can trust our people to think, to consume information, to develop their own ideas, and to debate with one another in the open marketplace of ideas. Now, we've also watched as hostile foreign adversaries have weaponized AI software to rewrite history, surveil users, and censor speech. This is hardly new, of course. As they do with other tech, some authoritarian regimes have stolen and used AI to strengthen their military, intelligence, and surveillance capabilities, capture foreign data, and create propaganda to undermine other nations' national security. I want to be clear. This administration will block such efforts, full stop. Stop.
Put up Fox Live, please, if you would. Right now, or moments ago, I should say, Vance met with the European Commission president as part of this, again, first foreign trip. Let's listen a bit to this.
Conversation, we're looking forward to it. President?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Pleasure to meet you. And indeed, I have the pleasure today to listen to your inspirational speech at the AI Action Summit.
Yep.
And I like very much the part where you said we should look with optimism
yes.
at artificial intelligence. I think the same goes for our transatlantic relations. We should look with optimism at our transatlantic relations that are deep and strong bonds. So very much looking forward to working with you and with the President.
Great. Well, we look forward to it too. And now that we've made our public remarks, we'll have the real conversation, so you guys have to leave. Good to see you.
Thank you, Boris.
I love him because he's very meta, acknowledges the fourth wall. So last night, Fox aired an additional portion of their interview with Red Bear's interview with President. You can take that down. President Trump. He was asked if J.D. Vance was his heir apparent, and the first word out of his mouth was kind of an emphatic no. That perked up some ears. There are Republicans who would like to run for president. It's not too early to discuss this because if Trump endorses Vance, even the Republicans who want to be the nominee in 28 believe that's it. So the question is, Sean, despite what he said yesterday, will Donald Trump endorse J.D. Vance to be his heir apparent?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. A couple things on this. Number one, we're 3 weeks in and they want an answer on whether he's going to, announce JD. I think that was, to be honest with you, it was sort of a silly question at this point. Two, so Trump said he's doing a great job and da-da-da-da. There's a bit of the apprentice in here that he wants, a little bit of competition. You think about the people in his cabinet alone, never mind the governors like Sarah, who I worked with, who'd be a great candidate at the end of her second term. You've got a lot of great governors, and I think to some degree he wants that competition. He wants them out there saying, "I want to be the heir to the thing." But I had John McLaughlin on my podcast last night. He did a poll. Who would Republican primary voters want? J.D. Vance 27, Donald Trump Jr. 21, Ron DeSantis 8, and no one else above 3. So assuming that Don, and I don't speak for Don, I'll ask him, but I don't think he wants to run right now, although he probably in Trump fashion doesn't want to rule it out. But assuming that Don doesn't run, I'd take that JD 27 and get it probably closer to 40. And then the game is over. So, there's an element to which JD Vance is also selling it on itself. Every time he goes out there and does an appearance, he impresses people with his ability to deal with the media in case of interviews, to show his intellect and his thought process on issues from AI to military to government spending. So I think the president's comments at the end are actually more telling, which is he's doing a great job. He's out there doing it. And if he continues to do this, there really won't be anything more than a gadfly type of competition.
I agree. Dan, if you're J.D. Vance, do you want the field cleared, or do you recognize that history suggests a competitive nomination fight might toughen you up for a general election?
You always want to have to compete because it makes you sharper. And I think to Sean's point, look at how Trump treated his own children. Like, everyone's the beggar. Everyone should have to audition every single day. Everyone should have to please dad. The moment that Trump puts his thumb on the scale, you lose a little bit of leverage over some of these people. As long as they think there's a chance that either JD steps in it, like, don't forget, Mike Pence was on the reservation until he wasn't the last month, right? And then he was completely, the enemy. And so I think Trump will wait until the absolute last second that he really feels like it's time to say something, to keep everybody thinking it could be me. What can I do to help Trump? How can I please Trump? How can I get in front of Trump? What can I do? Because it's all about the one star in the movie. That is Donald Trump.
Hey,
right,
Dan,
last question.
Hold on. Can I just tell you, Jim asked the same question at Dems. Do you want to know what it turned out? 33% Kamala Harris, 9% Pete Buttigieg, 7% Gavin Newsom, AOC at 6%, and no one else above 3%.
Well, that's okay. I mean, look, I
no, it's great.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I can remember in 2001, Al Gore was who everybody wanted. In I think it was 2016, Joe Biden immediately was like, the front runner. Like, it's always the name ID. So I'm okay with that. By the way, we still have not heard much from Kamala Harris, who is very, very quiet right now.
Yep. All right. Last question again, then we're going to go to folks in the community. No particular order, Sean. Who are the 3 most likely Republican nominees in 28?
Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis.
Dan.
I'm going to go with Rubio, Vance, but I think a woman, and I'm going to say Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Some woman will run.
Sarah would. I would say if JD said he wasn't running, I'd actually throw Sarah to the front. She jumps the shark. She moves immediately to the front. I just question whether she would challenge him or not. But if there's somebody that meets the criteria of MAGA relationship with not just Trump, but the orbit, it's Sarah.
You know what though, Sean? They're Joe Biden, for all we knock him. One of the things he did brilliantly in 2008 was he ran, but he was always had an eye on being a VP candidate. He never really went after Biden, even in those debates. He kind
Obama.
Obama. Sorry. I could see an instance where if Vance is considered the 800-pound gorilla and you don't want to try to take down MAGA's, air, you run a fairly positive campaign. You show JD, I can be nimble, I can be good on television, I'm good on my feet in debates, and you try to kind of thread that needle of elevating your own profile.
By the way, it's an interesting angle on this, just to throw another wrinkle in there, because if I were, same thing. I think you're right, Sarah. If you had Vance Sanders, it would be huge. But Trump may actually have more influence on that VP nomination than any other previous nominee. I think that actually could be a pretty compelling ticket too.
The correct answer is Vance, Rubio, and then a tie between Youngkin and Glenn and Ted Cruz. All right.
Wait, hold on a sec, Mark. Do you think that Youngkin and Rubio both would be that institutional lane a little? You think there could be 2 people in that lane?
There's only one lane. It's the MAGA lane. There's no such thing as the institutional lane. All right. Welcome in.
Wait, can we do the other side quick just to...
No. Time short.
Not today. Bruce, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are.
I just wanted to say
don't know where you are.
I'm calling from just outside Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I had a few points. One, just first of all, last time I was on, Mark, I implied that you were naive. I apologize for that. It was my first time on. I was nervous.
It was probably true.
Second of all, I just wanted to say that thank you for this platform, because what's really unique about it is that you're not trying to force a demographic. You're letting it evolve naturally, and I think that's really cool. Thirdly, regarding the notion of pets and kids, cute kids, I would just like to, Your Honor, I'd like to submit for the record that it would be great if participants could be submitting a photo, maybe singular photo of their kids, because a lot of us are boomers or millennials, and our kids maybe were cute at one time, but maybe
we'll take throwback photos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce, are you pro statehood or anti statehood?
Well, I'd like to stay a country if that's what you mean. Yeah, that'd be great.
Bruce, do you know what uniform number Babe Ruth wore?
He wore 3.
Yeah.
Because back then it was based on batting order.
See, you're already an American.
Welcome to America.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I studied American politics in university, so.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a couple things. One, do you think that there's a chance that RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard would run as Republicans?
Ooh.
Yes.
Great question.
Yeah, I could see. Here's the difference. It's one thing to be a vehicle of Donald Trump's as a cabinet secretary. I think RFK in particular, not having the pro-life or Second Amendment community behind you is almost a non-starter.
Yeah, that's true. One more question, Bruce.
Here's my picture. And I have other questions, but.
Adorable. All right, we'll come back another time. That's a great picture. What year is that from?
Sorry?
What year is that from?
That would be, they're all in their mid-20s now, so I'd bring them. I can't sit them on my lap anymore. The one sitting on my lap is 6'6", so I can't sit them on my lap anymore. So,
all right, Bruce, thanks for coming. Love having you. Come back regularly, please. Happy to have Bruce as part of the United States, even though he doesn't want to be here. All right, welcome in, Ms. Shepard.
Hi.
How do you pronounce your first name correctly?
Actually, I'm B Young. I work on some security stuff, so I didn't want my name on there. So
Okay. All right. So what should we call you, Madam X?
B. You can just call me B. That's fine.
B. B. Welcome in. Can you tell us where you are?
Yeah. Well, I'm in California right now, but from Oregon most of the time. And then it's a little bit dark here, so it's quite, the sun hasn't come up quite yet.
I thought you were in a bunker, maybe.
I'm in a little office I'm making. So the Anubis Shepherd I'm creating a new dog breed. I'm using DNA techniques to make a dog that looks like a Siamese cat. It has a black face with blue eyes and black legs. So that's
you got a prototype we can see?
Sort of. It's a little dark in here, unfortunately, right now. So I'll try to get a little better lighting if I come on again, because they are very beautiful. I have a couple prototypes. Yes.
Living animals or paper mache?
Living animals.
Really? And we can't even have a peek?
See if we can get some down. So again, we're in a construction zone right now. So I have a whole house that's being gutted. So I'm out in a little office right now. So it's kind of awkward. I have 10 dogs out in a little office right now. It's kind of odd with the morning. So it's freezing.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, there's a lot of good stuff already on the table, but tell us what's on your mind.
Well, what was on my mind? So I'm a computer person, and I've created, if you're like into sci-fi and whatever, I created a program based on psychohistory that does predictions. So I do strategies based on predicting what's going on. My problem I have with what Trump said, and I'm an independent, so I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, and I don't want to get anybody upset. I've never voted because of what I do for a living. If you donate or vote, as you hear, everybody always holds it against you. You're on this side or that side, and so because of that, I don't take sides. I work on issues. I don't work with parties. So, but my issue with what I had with what Trump said about Vance, Bannon can be a force for good and a force for bad in the Republican area. But I really don't like that he's trying to convince Trump that he can run for a third term. I'm very concerned that Trump said Vance isn't his successor because he believes he's going to be his own successor, and he's going to buy into some very unhealthy Kool-Aid for him. He has a super high approval rating right now, and I believe
Trump.
that'll drop him down into the actual single
All right,
digits if he tries to
B,
do that.
this is all great fodder. Tell us a question, please.
Well, my question is to especially Sean, do you think he's going to buy into that? Because really, Bannon is proving really hard that third term is okay.
All right, Sean, third term, distraction for Maggie Haberman or something real for America?
I think there's a lot of people on the right that would love to discuss this. It's a constitutional issue. I don't think we have the ability to pass a constitutional amendment in that short a time. So I think he will enjoy being feted and this conversation happening, and especially after what happened to him the first term. But I think that it's nothing more than
How
fodder.
about my favorite idea that Vance runs for president and Trump runs for vice president?
How about you take that a step further, and then Vance steps down immediately. Trump ascends back to the presidency, renames Vance, which is the loophole.
Yeah. You good with that?
I think John McLaughlin should pull Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, because Bill Clinton's about the same age as Donald Trump. His health's not great, but I mean, we can bring them all back. Everyone.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, look, to be clear, I mean, not to go down this rabbit hole, but I would just say, I said this before, age isn't a number. It's not, there's some, and Dan, I think you've said this before too. I mean, there's some people that are in their 90s sharp as a tack, and there's some people that are 60 that have lost it. So I will just say this. I don't think if anyone questioning age right now, if anything, I don't know how Caroline Leavitt at 27 keeps up with Donald Trump right now. I mean, this guy is from morning to night. I posted a picture last night. It's 7:30 at night. The Marines standing outside the West Wing entrance signaling that the president is in the Oval Office. We didn't see that for 4 years. This president is working.
Bill Clinton, great video. I think it's from yesterday of him in East Hampton yesterday. I saw on YouTube walking around shopping. Yeah. Laura Curran, speaking of Long Island and speaking of Canada, welcome in.
Thank you. I'm in actually LA right now.
Or in LA. All right. It's bright where you are, a little bit bright. Yeah. Thank you for joining. Tell us what's on your mind.
So a couple of things in the last couple of days have gotten me. I have a question for Sean. So the first is the Justice Department asking the Southern District of New York to drop charges against Eric Adams after this very long and complicated investigation. And then the other thing was about the foreign bribery announcement that, wanting to do away with charges of taking foreign bribes, and which is what Adams is, one of the things that Adams is being accused of. And so my concern is, obviously we live in a country where we re-elect a different person president every 4 to 8 years. Is there any concern in MAGA world, Sean, that this is sort of what it's going to be now? And then when the other group of people are in power, they'll have this kind of power and sort of insouciance that Trump has. And then playing that forward, what does that mean for the country?
So it's a great question. I would just say that for a lot of us who were on the periphery of this, after 4 years of Biden dealing with watching what we feel in many cases was a very rogue justice system, going after people, bankrupting people, that there is a skepticism of law enforcement and how the judicial system has been weaponized. Looking at the cases against Trump alone, if Trump wasn't Trump and didn't have the money he had, he'd be bankrupted and in jail. And I think for some of us that were on the periphery, where we just got yanked in every once in a while and had to pay for lawyers ad nauseum, you start to go, you know what? I used to believe in a justice system that was fair and equitable, and I don't anymore. And I believe that there's countless cases that we have seen where one system of justice was applied to one side of a group of people and not another. And that several people on the periphery of a lot of cases got dragged in, bankrupted, reputations were ruined. And so it's a very different view or a very different answer that I would have given you 4 or 6 or 8 years ago. And so from MAGA world standpoint, I don't think there's any love lost to the judicial system right now.
But that leads me to another question. I mean, and I don't mean to sound pedantic, but the whole childhood thing, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And then will it just be sort of a revenge spiral? We come in and you were bad, so we do this, and you were worse, so we're doing that, and just on and on.
I would clarify, with all due respect to Sean, I don't think the Clinton administration from 92 to 2000 would say that the judiciary system did not come after them, that staffers were not bankrupt. I mean, the Trump people, Trump likes to always have a grievance, always likes to have an enemy, always likes to point at someone. The notion that this started with the Trump people, Trump himself, some of the New York cases, I agree with you, Sean, but the politics has been going down this road now since the 90s of launching these the Benghazi attack, all the people at the State Department who had to have lawyers, all the times they had to be dragged before committees. Nothing was found. We're going to have another hearing. We're going to have another investigation. We're going to keep coming back to stuff. Like, it's been happening. And I think that doesn't go to the foreign bribery. To me, that was unbelievable. And I believe the quote was, it's going to be great for American businessmen. Like, we can bribe officials overseas. Like, okay. I mean, if that's...
Well, can I get to the heart of Laura's other question, which is, I get your question, Laura. And the problem with for me and my side is this. Every time the left changes the rules, when the right gets back into power, they go, okay, let's just let bygones be bygones, right? So Harry Reid changes the judiciary, the nomination process. And it's like, well, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, you know what? Let's just call it a truce here. The left does it, and then they say to the right, two wrongs don't make a right. It's whataboutism. We shouldn't keep going down this trail. It's like, you know, the left keeps starting the ball rolling down the hill and then gets mad when the right allows it to continue. It always starts on the left, and then they get upset when they lose power, and it's going to get turned on them.
The other thing, Sean, though, is that the DOJ under Biden, I mean, you can say what you like about the Hunter Biden thing, but that was a big investigation. And Bob Menendez and Eric Adams.
Okay.
It's not like they only go after Republicans.
Right. But let's just two quick cases on that. I'll just say this. Hunter Biden was offered literally with a bow, the biggest sweetheart deal ever, and turned it down. At some point, they were like, dude, if you don't take this, we actually got to do our job because it's in public and everyone sees how ridiculous this is. On Bob Menendez, I don't think that, I mean, at some point, again, how many times has Bob Menendez gotten off bribing people and doing things? You can't wear a jacket with your name Bob on it stuffed with cash and go, seriously, this time it's not me.
But hold on a second there. I mean, they went after Bob Menendez years ago. The judge,
and he got away with it.
I mean, the jury was hung, but it's not like the federal government. I mean, to Laura's point, they did hit both sides. They've been going after Sean. You make a great point. Like, Democrats change the rules, and then we say, wait a second, like, you can't do it. And Harry Reid was one of the, really started this by lowering the threshold to 50 votes. But I mean, again, this is where, to me, some of the way the party keeps screaming that everything is an outrage. There are certain things that, in my opinion, are shocking, are not good for the average citizen, that will lead to bad results. And if we could focus on that and not, $20 cut to, some program overseas as an end to the, our democracy, we'd have more credibility. I just don't think it gets heard.
I agree with that. Laura, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having.
Please
Laura, I will also
regularly.
say in the chat, they are saying you have the greatest voice.
Radio
voice. Yeah, radio.
They tell me I got a great face for radio.
Laura, I've done a couple books. I know Marcus too. They always, if you don't want to voice it yourself, they always ask, who would you want to voice it? They bring in talent. I'm gonna have to write this down in a effort of bipartisanship. I would be honored if I ever write a book again for you to help voice it. It would soothe people's ears to hear conservative propaganda coming their way from your voice.
Well, that's very kind, and I'll say yes if you ask.
Laura, thanks. Travel safely.
Okay.
Come back regularly, please. We love having you on. All right. Laura Curran, for those of you who don't know, was a county executive, Democratic county executive on Long Island, and joins us regularly. We like having her on. Kevin, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind after you unmute, please.
There I am. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm calling from suburban Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a Republican, 3-time Trump voter, and 4th if it comes up, if I get the chance. So I have an idea, and I'll be really brief with this. I have an idea of something Trump should do, and I want your opinion on it. And you're either going to smile and say it's the goofiest thing you've ever heard, or you're going to say it's brilliant and try to steal it, I think. So here it is. First of all, 2 quick things. Number 1, Trump is the greatest poke the bear politician on the planet by far. And number 2, I think we could find a video of the Chinese handing a bag of cash to Biden and saying, thanks for the last 10 years for everything you've done. And there's 0 chance they're going to prosecute Biden. So here's my idea. Trump gets up and he does a preemptive pardon to Biden and said, and can you just imagine that speech? And he says, the DOJ has already said that he's not fit to be prosecuted, and because there's always a presumption of guilt, I think, when you preemptively pardon someone. So what do you think?
Okay, thank you for the question. Dan.
Sure.
One, I'm not aware of a video that shows Joe Biden getting cash from China. And I would not say, Biden was president for 4 years, not 10 years. So if there was a gift to the Chinese, our current president was president for 4 of those 10 years prior. Look, people talked about Biden doing this to Trump as a way to take the temperature down, getting towards November and then afterwards. I just have a hard time seeing Trump being gracious and, kind of saying, let's just turn the temperature down and move forward. Again, I think the politics for him have been very good at having a boogeyman, having somebody to blame, somebody to bring up. And, he'll say, why hasn't the DOJ investigated Biden? And this is why the whole thing's crooked and needs to be reformed. And I just think it's too easy. It's like a, piñata for him. But I mean, it's a great idea for the country.
I would just say, I think, and maybe I'm Kevin's, it's more of strategic. It's not necessarily Trump being kind. It's like, put him in the situation that, of denying a pardon and having to defend himself. I mean, there's something there very Machiavellian about doing it like that. I just don't think that they want it would close the door on a lot of potential. I think my guess is that there'd be a split in MAGA world. Some people saying, like, why are we doing this? Why are we helping him? I don't know. It's definitely a fun conversation to have, whether or not what it would result in, because there's the legal argument that then he couldn't take the fifth. So there's some fascinating stuff on that.
Kevin, thanks. I had to mute you because your audio was a little crackly, but grateful to you for joining. Thank you so much. Send us some graders. All right, Bob, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind, please, after you unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. First off, great platform. Really appreciate you guys putting this together. It's nice to have a civil conversation amongst everyone in the community. My question is on Gaza. I really don't understand that it's not getting more attention. It comes with a whole host of problems, in my opinion, going into Gaza and getting into that whole process between the Palestinians and Israel. And to me, that's really not, I voted for Trump 3 times. It's really not America first. That really is the Palestinians and the Israelis to figure out. And I know Trump thinks it's a real estate transaction, and that's the way he's looking at it, as a real estate transaction. But I mean, if you're looking to build homes for folks right here in America, we have LA. You go to any big city, we've had a homeless problem for decades. Go to any big city, you'll see people in tents, unfortunately, whether it's Seattle or Austin, etc. So outside of my disagreement with the approach, my question is, how does that even happen to buy Gaza? And I don't even know who you buy it from. I think you have to buy it from somebody and then get a treaty and Congress to have a 2/3 vote and approve the treaty. But that's my question. How would we actually, has anyone thought about buying Gaza and doing what Donald Trump wants to do?
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, Dan, you want to go? Here, I'll just keep it clear. I think the meetings that he's having with both Jordan and then LCC of Egypt will be interesting. Mark mentioned potentially a press conference today. Let's see. Part of this, the question is this an attempt to actually make a development deal and say, let's make Gaza a place, what did he call it, the Riviera?
Yes.
Or is this more of a negotiating tactic to get people who might not otherwise to the table to say, your ideas for the last several decades have not yielded anything productive. Let's think of a new dynamic to do this. If you don't have anything better, I'm going away with mine. But I think in the next week, we'll get a sense, maybe even later today, depending on what the king and the crown prince say publicly, if anything. So I look, the way I've said this before is the same old thinking in a lot of ways with respect to both government domestically and some of our foreign policy issues that we faced internationally have not worked. We do the same thing over and over again. New thinking, new approaches, new dynamics are needed. And so if that's what President Trump is bringing to this, I welcome it. But doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome is by definition stupid.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with Sean, which is that I don't really think this was totally thought through. I think even the details, like last week, the Carolyn Leavitt said that the Palestinians, it would be a temporary settlement of them. Now Trump is saying like, no, they wouldn't come back. But I think Sean makes a good point. And you hear this in other places. People have come on both this and the 6 p.m. show, which is we've tried something for 50 years. It hasn't worked. There's just been this stalemate of frustration. So I think Trump is trying to shake it up, which he loves to do, like throw out something, see if it works. But I don't think any of these details have been thought out. You have people like Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, who has said we should not spend our tax dollars rebuilding, just as you just said. I think you'd hear Democrats, Bernie Sanders and others saying the same thing. We should build, public housing in New York City or, middle income housing. So TBD, but maybe Trump will shake it up enough that other people, or get off the pot and do something different that produces a better outcome. Or not.
Bob, thank you. Thank you for joining, Bob. Grateful to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Sean, are you saying you don't think the president will make progress today on resettlement of Palestinians, or you didn't say that?
No, I actually said, to your point, like if there's a presser, it's that this would be probably what is, front of mind for everybody so that it'll be discussed. I think that whether there's progress privately or publicly are two different things. So depending on what the king and the crown prince say, they might say, hey, let's keep having a private discussion about some of these things moving forward, or based on some of the work. I mean, when you have a meeting like this or go to a conference, whether it's ASEAN or APEC or G10 or G8, whatever, 80%, if not 90, is staff work ahead of the meeting. So that when the principals meet, it's our teams have agreed to the following. Let's just codify it and shake our hands. President Trump, I think, freewheels a lot more, probably gets that lower to 70%. But this has been discussed at the staff level in advance of this meeting. So maybe they come in with, we agree that the following should be done. We're willing to concede this. We're willing to resettle this many people, whatever it is.
Yep.
So if that's the case, to your point, I think we'll publicly see something. If not, it doesn't mean the progress isn't being made. It's just that it's not baked enough.
Yep. I'll make two predictions.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
There you go.
I was gonna say, I think Trump will have some real or made up, that he will go to the microphones and say some progress has been made, even if it's just like, we're going to keep talking.
I almost never make predictions, certainly about something as volatile as the Middle East, but I'll make two. There'll be a press conference today or a statement, and it will involve progress on the resettlement of Palestinians, and there'll be Israeli commando actions to retrieve hostages between now and the weekend.
I was going to ask you about the second one, and I'm glad you've addressed it, because I think that statement yesterday, I thought the key line, by the way, is everyone focused on what Trump said about 12 o'clock, I think it was on Saturday. But the comma at the end, but Israel can do what they want, was sort of, to me, the big green light to Bibi to say, go for it, baby, go in, get them out. And they missed that part.
Pray for the hostages and pray that if there are raids, they are successful.
Well, all right. I assume that Bibi, when he was in town, spending time at the Pentagon and spending time at the CIA, both the hostages and Iran are percolating around the governments.
Yep, without a doubt. All right, tonight, 6 p.m., two-way tonight. Two great guests. Part of what we try to do here is introduce you to people with great ideas who you may not know. So some of you will know these two, but others will not. Bridget Fatesi is a great writer and great podcaster. And brilliant, really one of the smartest people I know in talking about anything and everything. And then the other is someone I don't know, but I'm told I need to. So I'll be meeting the sphere of under the desk news along with you all. join me to learn about V-Sphere. Sean, you a big V-Spheres fan?
Britney Spears?
No. Dan, you know V-Sphere? Sorry, Spear, not Sphere. Spear, V-Sphere. You know V-Sphere?
But I look forward to learning.
Under the desk news. Do we have the graphic? I was promised the graphic. V-Sphere.
It's invisible. Sorry.
Huge following
It's a she.
podcast. All right.
The name of the podcast is pretty awesome. So
yes, two ladies will be joining us on the show tonight. So tune in 6 o'clock Eastern time. No graphic, but two great guests, and the three of us will be back tomorrow 9 a.m. Eastern time to show you highlights from the Trump press conference. Thank you for joining. Have a great day, and we'll see you at 6 and 9.